So great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't no matter. He'll get me better. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
Good night, everyone, and welcome back to This Just In. There's no Marsha, but there's me, there's Neil. We have a special guest tonight, a super fan of not only the show, but the Miami Heat, Larry Marshall, really a good friend of ours. So if he's on, you know what time it is. It is NBA preview time because the league starts tomorrow with two huge games. Welcome back, Neil. Good night, Larry. So let's not waste any time with introductions or anything like that. Let us go. Of the four teams, we have Warriors at Nets, Clippers at Lakers. Who has the most to prove in these opening round games?
I can let the guest start first. Let's go, Larry.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. The most pressure, I believe, is Brooklyn because they're the most unproven team playing on opening night. They have a lot of questions, new coach, possible chemistry issues, players coming back from injuries, and I think it's going to be fascinating because they look good in the preseason. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Real good in preseason, I must add.
Yeah, Durant looks like he hasn't missed a beat. Kyrie, he looks wonderful. but still, I think, that's preseason. Like, the real games start, on opening night. So we'll see.
Well, again, Larry is a close friend of ours for many decades, and already he's showing that he knows nothing about basketball.
I was waiting for that.
Right? If the team, I think, has a lot to prove, and these games mean a lot more, is the Clippers. Let's be honest. The Clippers. Let's be honest. The Clippers, they came out, they were touted as being the team to stop the Lakers in making their title run last season. Kawhi was heralded as the LeBron James stopper, the best player in the NBA, to Max Kellerman and some other analysts around the basketball sphere. We had Paul George, who is supposed to be, all world. He did not, he showed that he's a baller in Indiana. He went to OKC. He got ousted by Damian Lillard. He came home. He came home, to the Clippers to bring a championship there. And the expectations were really high. They had sixth man of the year, Montrezl Harrell. They had Lou Williams. They had, I think I put that in your quotes, defensive stopper, Patrick Beverly. They had a good cast. They had a good team, right? Zubac down low and everything like that. So with the disappointing end to their season in the postseason, coupled with the fact that Paul P was non-existent, right? And then when you add to that too, you have, along with Pandemic P, he then decided the backboard. You also have his words that he was saying during all season about Doc Rivers, about the system and the culture, and what was the expectations. He didn't expect this. Paul George can always bring it back down to, it wasn't that big a deal. Like when Damian Lillard hit that shot, that wasn't a big shot. That was a bad shot. And when they got ousted, it was like, expectations were too high. We weren't supposed to win in the first season. When after they beat the Lakers, I think the first two meetings last season, everybody was saying, oh my God, we can't wait for that Western Conference matchup. So I think that we are back at the same thing a season later, where the Lakers are playing the Clippers, and the Clippers, now the script is a little different. The Clippers have to come out with blood in their eyes, and I don't even think that they have that blood in their eyes because they've gotten, in my estimation, a bit worse than last season because Montrezl Harrell is now across the floor in a purple and gold jersey. Paul George. I think the mystique with Paul George is a bit. The shine is off of that ball a bit. I don't think he's as good as everybody thought he was, or he even thinks he is. I think Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi Leonard, but then now you have the investigation the NBA is putting on Steve Ballmer and the I think it's Jerry West on how they acquired Kawhi Leonard and how that whole thing went down. So
it's so funny. Who really is the issue on right now, right? I can't say that or repeat the word, but yeah, go ahead.
He wasn't wrong,
right?
by the way.
No.
Well,
but yeah,
one team has the title and the other team is calling the other issue. So I don't know.
Right. So to me, the Clippers, took back their role as baby brother in LA, and I think they really need to come out the gates really hot to not only send a statement to the defending champions, and also kind of at least mentally get their season off to the right onto the right track.
But that's kind of why I don't think the pressure's on them, because they beat the Lakers twice last season. So they're not a team about the regular season. Like, even if the Lakers, no one is going to think, oh, well, the ship is correct. So that's why I feel it's not really them. They're our team geared for playoffs.
Yeah,
playoffs.
So I try to look at this by a process of elimination. So when you look at Lakers, they don't have anything to prove. Obviously, they're the defending champions. The Warriors have a run where they had 3 titles in 4 years. Sure, they have to get back or prove to other people that they can get back to where they are, but they have 3 titles in 4 years and a run of 5 straight NBA finals, if memory serves me correct. I think I'll side with Larry on this one in that the Clippers.
Oh, big surprise. two men that don't know basketball.
So that the Clippers, like, say what you want, the team is built or supposed to be your benchmark is postseason success. So no matter what they do in the regular season, no, they're not going to be judged by what they do there is what they do in the postseason or what they don't do. So yeah, I'm going to say that it is indeed the Brooklyn Nets because there's so many question marks. You have a first-year head coach that's never coached anywhere in his entire life. You have 2 guys, your superstars that have never played together outside of Team USA basketball and obviously All-Star basketball and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You have a bench that now has to acclimatize to the addition of both superstars. Granted, one played a bit last season, but not very long, and the other sat down in street clothes or stood up and celebrated on the sideline with them. So, like, there's a lot of acclimatization to do. You don't and they're already being touted as Eastern Conference champions and really have done nothing collectively together as a unit. So those question marks, and when you look at a team that has absolutely no pass first players in their good players, whether it be Durant, whether it be Kyrie Irving, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, none of these players are pass first players. So my question is,
Steve Nash can pass the ball. Steve Nash can pass the ball.
Yeah, but
if Kyrie doesn't get him fired.
And then you have a guy, mentioning Kyrie that's burning sage on people's court.
My get rid of bad juju that was in Boston earlier.
But the man wants to do it before every game.
Well, so you have a guy burning sage before every game. Burning people with his burner account. Then you have that guy number 1 talking about he's never played with guys he trusts to take.
Bad mind.
And then you have the cloud of James Harden being traded for 3/4 of the roster that's actually good. So my big thing is, like, this is the team for me that has to answer the most questions, and not of the 4, but of the entire game, in my estimation.
But hold on, the question was which team has to show out tomorrow to really,
No.
Who has
I worded the question, so I know the answer.
All right. So tell me the question. So what's the question then?
I said, which team has the most to prove of the 4?
Exactly. So in my estimation, the Nets don't have a lot to prove. Why? Because one, I think anybody that understands basketball knows how that will turn out. You got a first-year coach in Steve Nash. You have Kyrie Irving, who is burning sage. You have Kevin Durant, who is burning accounts. You have the potential arrival of James Harden. The potential arrival of James Harden, who is going to be asking who's going to be asking the Nets for 3/4 of their bench. In the end, they ain't got nothing to prove because anything they do talking about Eastern Conference champion, if they come out of the Eastern Conference, that is gravy on top of icing with ice cream on top.
Yeah, but
So
you don't put
in my
Kevin Durant
estimation,
and Kyrie Irving together not to win titles. He's not
Exactly.
being humble, but humble
Exactly.
estimation.
Especially in a market like Brooklyn, New York. Like
see,
they have the most to prove.
y'all just get doing this rhetoric about being in a big market, New York, and this or that next. Them man,
Yes, it matters.
as a close friend of ours, Mark to say, I give that till MLK Day. Martin Luther King Day, I give that until. And that
So
will implode.
to make sure, because this is a nationally syndicated show, by Martin Luther King Day, what do you expect to happen? Let's be clear on this.
I expect there will be infighting, backbiting, burner accounts talking,
More than
sage,
Sage. More than Sage.
more than sage. All of a sudden, the media. All of a sudden, he go walk out to the media. It can go bad quickly in New York in Brooklyn.
So Sage will not be the only thing burning in Brooklyn. That's what you're basically saying.
Something a little stronger. Say a little stronger.
Well, as you mentioned that, Neil, then I'm going to start with you quickly right here. I asked quickly, who has the most to prove from the opening tip. But do you believe, particularly national media, do we put too much stock in these opening night games?
I can pull a Justin Marvel here and say yes or no, because a non-committal answer Dipsy Doodle the public, because
sounds about right.
Because I think it is important in the case of LA versus LA, essentially Clippers versus Lakers. Last year, with all of the hype and expectations of the Clippers versus LeBron James, fully healthy with a better squad, Anthony Davis in the mix. That was a hype thing, and it really was dependent on who comes out and dominates in LA, because it's the mental edge of it all and making sure that the team understands that LeBron is human, or to understand that the Clippers really are not as much hype as expected or as touted. So I think these games matter in certain regards. I think in the LA versus, I think it matters. In the Golden State Nets game, it really, to me, honestly, I think that is just to show the return of Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Great basketball is going to be played in terms of entertaining, high scoring, volume shots, crossovers, those kind of things. I don't expect that to be anything. Whoever wins that it's not like whoever wins that is going to come out of their conference or going to make a run for the title or whatever. That legitimately is just for and kind of like a swan song for thank you for sticking out the bubble and the previous season. And here's what we're going to see going forward in 2020, 2021. I mean, yes, they matter, but only in some cases, man. Some of them really, I literally do not care about the Golden State Warriors and the New Jersey Nets. I'm sorry, Brooklyn Nets. I don't care about them. I don't care who wins, who loses, or whatever. I would tune in, obviously, because it's entertaining basketball, and I'm excited to see basketball being back at this time of the year, which is unprecedented. So the LA versus I am happy to see, because one, my Lakers, and two, I want to see the shine off of that ball. I want to see if there are men or if there are mice there in the Clippers across the hall.
So same question at you, Larry. Do we, the fans, the media, make too much of these games considering they're not playoff games and it's the opening?
Absolutely, because I think if you ask the players, it's just 1 out of 72 games. So especially when you have this truncated season where you're playing a lot of games close together, you have to have the mentality to move on. So the media is going to make a big deal. Oh, LeBron versus Kawhi, Paul George did this, whatnot. But at the end of the day, is not, as we know last year, the Clippers beat the Lakers on opening night. I think they beat them on Christmas too, and then in the playoffs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Look what happened, right? So
You couldn't even see the
but
Lakers.
I agree with Neil. Like it's for entertainment. So, and that's part of what is branding the league. So you kind of have to make a big deal out of these matchups to get fans excited and fans to talk about the game and revenue to go up. In a way, they make too much of the games, the outcome of the games, but the games themselves, I would say, are rather like important based on like matchups and fanfare and whatnot.
I feel y'all, and as me too, I'm going to give a Justin Marvel answer.
You are Justin Marvel. Marvel.
As
Pretty
you are
much.
Justin over here.
So here, I'm going to first agree with y'all by saying I think, yeah, these games are made too much of when you look at it in terms of it's the first game of the season. You're like it's not a one game season, obviously. It's not the NFL where each game matters because you're only playing 16. And on top of it, as y'all mentioned, the example, the Clippers won the first two games against the Lakers, and they even make it to the Western Conference Finals. And then I remember your Heat, Larry, in 2006, they struggled against what at the time would have been elite teams.
Yes.
They had a losing record against the elite teams, and then in the playoffs, turned it on and swept aside the competition. And the only real trouble they had was in the finals before they inevitably beat the Mavericks in 4 straight games to win 4-2.
Oh boy.
But I'm going to say actually these games do matter to the players, particularly when you look, because they expect opening night and you're going to want to close your ears, Neil, or take off your headphones when they say this.
Or I can mute you. You go understand what this picture here.
But that is a fact. The Clippers are going to take this game very, very, very seriously. They're going to
and that's all right.
And I don't think the Lakers will, but the Clippers are going to because they're the ones with huge question marks and a lot of doubters and a lot of things to answer. So, like, especially somebody like Paul George, who has been in a semi back and forth with his old coach, Doc Rivers, and former father-in-law, if you want to call him that. And then
that's just wrong.
That's false. I mean, it's also factual. But then the national media from calling him Pandemic P to him hitting the side of the backboard, looking atrocious in that second round series against the Denver Nuggets. Kawhi Leonard in Game 7 of that same series, like not scoring a point in the second half, not getting the free throw line. So I think for them, it is important to them to show out so that they don't continually hear it in the national. Because make no mistake, no matter what all of them tell you, they do tune in, they do listen, maybe not to our show, but to the First Takes and the, Nick Wright show. They listen to the ESPNs and the Foxes, so they know what's being said and it hurts them. So I do think like they have to make something of it because a lot of these nationally televised games, you see the star players come into play. So yeah, maybe in terms of outcome, result, and what it means for matchups going forward the playoffs, they don't really mean a lot. But to the players, particularly I think the Clippers and maybe the Nets to a lesser point, I think you're going to see them coming out with a lot to prove and this meaning a lot to them in terms of play. Hold on. I think that gave me the perfect segue. I'm not introducing questions is a bit tricky for me. Tonight, it is a perfect segue into Golden State because they do play the very first game of this season. I'm going to start with you this time, Larry. In that game and going forward, what do you want or expect to see from the Golden State Warriors? And with that being said, do you anticipate that they will make the playoffs?
I guess I have like 3 like key points I would look. First is Steph Curry, because even though he only played 5 games last season, it wasn't very Steph Curry-like in those games. So we want to see if he's back to, even if not MVP form, but close to MVP top 5 player league in the league form. Second, James Wiseman. Is he going to be the starting center? He didn't play any games in preseason, and I think he might have had COVID and along with Draymond Green. So their interior defense is going to be a huge question mark all season to have a rookie on the back line. And then third, I mean, Andrew Wiggins, I guess. Like, which version of Andrew Wiggins are getting? Like, is
Which
this
version? They got more than one version of Andrew Wiggins.
but, like,
I didn't want to be the guy to ask.
but I want to know if he's going to be a productive role player, or is he going to be like a ball stopping guy who thinks he's like the third option or second option? Because make no mistake, even though Andrew Wiggins is not good, he is technically the team's second best offensive player.
Because those are
If you
both
think
asking
about
then,
it.
Larry. If he's not the second or third option, then who is?
Right, but he's not really good. So that's what I'm saying. Like, are we going to get an improved version, or is it going to be the same guy that dribbles the dots and fires up bad mid-range shots? You know. So I think those are like the three keys for me going forward. Are they going to make the playoffs? For them, they only have to be in the top 10, and I think they can be better than like 5 of the other teams. Like, I think they're going to be better than like San Antonio, Sacramento, Minnesota, Memphis, and Oklahoma City. So they can make it into.
Don't forget Houston. Don't forget Houston.
I don't necessarily think they're going to be better than Houston. Houston, they're going to be close around the same range, but I don't think they're going guaranteed to be better.
You're anticipating that James Harden is not traded. That's what you mean. You mean Houston with James Harden.
The thing is, even if James Harden is traded, he's going to be traded for good players. Like, he's either going to be traded for Ben Simmons or
I thought you said good players. Because Ben Simmons, because as much as, hold on a minute, because as much as, yes, Ben Simmons is murdered in the paint, outside the paint, he is murdered.
Yeah,
he is a day walker.
Houston, he'll have a lot of shooters around him. That's like probably the perfect team that he can be traded to.
John Wall and shooters.
Well, John Wall ain't playing.
John Wall is one.
John Wall can make it. He can make it out this season, so he can be done by March.
Fair enough.
A stretch 5, Christian Wood. I mean, this is not the Houston section, but I mean, they typically surround players with a lot of shooters, right? So, yeah, I think Houston is probably going to be better than Golden State. I mean, Golden State is not a very good team, other than Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Like,
this is what the answer was hoping to hear, Neil. So I'm going to get to you, Neil. Mm-hmm. Same question. What do you want to see from Golden State? And I'm just joking, obviously, Larry. What do you want to see from Golden State, and do they make the playoffs?
Well, I would like to see if Andrew Wiggins could spell rebound this season. I know ordinarily he puts a W in front of the R and W is silent. So I just want to know if he's going to spell it correctly, or if he is going to still not grab a rebound, which is crazy for a man that's 6'8", that can't grab one single rebound for a game.
To quote Justin Brown, stands upright. Upright chap.
Upright chap. Affable fella.
That's 6'8", Neil Hoyt.
No, son. No, don't do that. Don't behave. Don't do that, son. Don't let's devolve into pettiness and get our base instincts going by mud slinging. Okay. But no, in all seriousness, I want to see obviously Steph Curry. You know, in his preseason games, he looked pretty good. He moves pretty well. He shot the ball really well. As Larry said, I want to see what how Steph Curry looks coming back, and if he is completely 100% healthy. I mean, it's to his benefit that he's going to have 72 games to play this season instead of those extra 10 for 82. It's going to be interesting.
It's not 100%. I could tell you that.
Oh well, I don't know. He's doing like skin things. I don't know why. I believe that Aisha in his ear telling him to do bear jump with his head, but that's a talk for another time. Steph, if you watch, I love you, but you got.
This is not Aisha cooking show, so please
no, most definitely not.
Yeah, you gotta do something with our hair, Steph. But look at me talking. But no, seriously, outside of Steph Curry, I want to see what that team looks like. It's going to be a very adverse year. You have Draymond Green. He's getting older, and they're going to be asking more from him. Now, we all know he's a glue guy, and I would say in the history of the NBA, he's one of those players that commit 6.6 rebounds, 5 assists, look really, really impactful and meaningful in the course of a game. But it would be interesting to see what, if anything, they can get from him. I do agree. I would like to see how Andrew Wiggins, his play, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because I think that is where he can excel and make a name for himself instead of being a scorer. We know he's a mid-range scorer, and we know that he can kind of score, create his own shot and everything like that. Yes, obviously, he may export at the rebounding efforts that he has, but he can improve on that. So just to see what his mindset is coming in. They have Kelly Oubre now. It's interesting to see Kelly Oubre being healthy and to see what he can bring to the mix in terms of his defense, because we all know that he was trying to make a name for himself as a defensive player. He picks up premier players at the half court, quarter court, and he likes to believe himself as a bit of a intensity light skin guy. So it's just interesting to see how those pieces factor in. And then we have Wiseman, James Wiseman, to see how he develops as a rookie, and to see if Golden State will treat this as a throwaway year because Klay Thompson is out and because they're not necessarily 100%, or if they're going to actually use this time to develop players, and if they do have a shot at going to the playoffs, if they will really make that push and not rest players, minutes and that kind of thing. So to me, it is interesting to see how that dynamic will be formed. We know they have a winning culture. We know they have the pieces that are young and up and coming. It's just to see how they plug and play around Steph Curry and to see if Steph Curry can play the game at the elite level that we remember him to play at. No, if they make us, I think there's a possibility of them making the playoffs. I remember someone was saying, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying that they have a chance of making the playoffs over the Portland Trail Blazers. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, that Portland could be out of the playoffs and in could come Steph Curry and them. But this is before Klay Thompson being injured, of course. But no, I would say, do they make the playoffs? I would say they have a legitimate shot. I mean, things get a little dicey from 6 all the way down to...
I want to know if you think they will. No,
Yes,
they have a legitimate shot.
If I think they will, I would say that they find a way to make the playoffs. They find a way to make that AFC seed. It ain't gonna be pretty. Their record is not gonna be incumbent on who they are as a franchise and their recent history. But I do think that they can eke in and make it to the playoffs.
So I want to see how good of a coach Steve Kerr really is. Know that you don't have all of these historic weapons around you. Steph Curry is still, in my estimation, should still be a top 10 player, top 5, so his talent. So with Steph Curry, and I know Larry particularly, and a lot of people are not fond of their wing players, but I mean, you could do a lot worse on your wings than Kelly Oubre Jr. and Andrew Wiggins. I think that's a good enough wing complement. And with someone like James Wiseman, the rookie big man that went number 2 overall, I think you have the makings of a quite athletic team. If Steve Kerr can tell himself, not to coach what he's accustomed coaching, but coach to the strength of his team, then you can see a team that gets up and down. Granted, 2 of your better players are over 30, as in Steph Curry and Draymond Green. But the strength of your team really is this youth and athleticism. As I mentioned, Kelly Oubre, Andrew Wiggins, and James Wiseman. And if you can tap into that, not play a lot of half-court basketball and get up and down, I think you can get the best of both Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins. You should go on a limb here, guys, and say that one of the two are going to average over 20 points per game. Will either be Kelly Oubre Jr. or Andrew Wiggins. I'm not saying that they're going to be all-stars, but I think one of the two, if not both, will average over 20 points. In that, Neil, we're not hearing you. At least I'm not hearing you, Neil. Yeah, I think you're...
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Probably it's a good thing I didn't hear you before.
Probably, but I mean, as I was saying, it's not a stretch to believe that either of those 2 players can score 20 points a game, really make up that team. You're not going to get 20 points out of Draymond Green, right? And that's the thing.
And someone has to score points.
Yeah, somebody else
got to score points, make it
especially
there.
At the pace I expect them to play at, somebody got to score the ball.
But they have to play a fast pace. Like, I expect this team to be pretty bad in the half court.
And
Yes, agreed.
as do I. So they have, in my estimation, like it's either like Draymond rebound and push it, or rebound a la LeBron James outlet very quickly and get Kelly Oubre and Andrew Wiggins out in space, because in the half court, Kelly Oubre is not bad, but as you mentioned, Andrew Wiggins sure is. So if you could get them out in transition, I think that this team can make some noise. And I'm going to go, since both of y'all hedge your bets, I'm going to say yes, this team is going to make the playoffs because I'm going to call the teams that they are better. No, let's start from the top and come down. Certainties, the two LA teams, Denver, Utah, and Dallas. I think those five, for me, are certainties in the playoffs. In my Phoenix Suns and the Trailblazers and the I mentioned Jazz already. I think Jazz are certainty. I think my Suns and Trailblazers around 6 and 7, and I think if the Trailblazers were good enough to make the playoffs last season with Damian Lillard doing Damian Lillard things, I have to believe that Steph Curry is still better than Damian Lillard. And if they can do that, granted, Yusuf Nurkic is a very good player and probably better than anything that Golden State has left behind. So too CJ McCollum. But I have to think that if Damian Lillard by himself almost was able to push them into playoffs, then I must think that Steph Curry can do the same. Because for me, whenever James Harden is traded, I think they're going to be better in Houston. They're better than Memphis, than Minnesota, Sacramento, like whatever floats on the Jets. I'm left back behind. The Spurs, OKC. Yeah, OKC's lost too much. No, I think they're better than them. So I think you're going to see a situation, and particularly because Steph Curry and Draymond, I think they sneak in at 7 or 8.
But they only have to make the top 10, right? They don't
have to make top 10, and that's easy. And then you make the top 10, and then from there it's a playoff atmosphere, and you're not going to count out Steph Curry and Draymond Green in a playoff type scenario.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
So I will go there and answer that question. Right. So sorry, I'm not accustomed to being Marsha. Marsha, we need you back on the show.
Justin, just to interject, I hear looking at the comments. It's just funny to see. We have Marsha, Dre, Adrian Seeley. They are, they're glad that Larry is on, and they're making fun of me dancing around the Golden State question. But it's good to see that that people are watching. I want to say Merry Christmas at this time. Happy holidays. Everybody be safe, eat, drink, and be merry, and enjoy the basketball.
You just had to say that in your red shirt. You want to put on a Santa Claus hat with a wreath and some mistletoe with that as well, or are we good?
You're lucky that I can't find a reindeer, some antlers, and a red nose.
It's not that sure. I mistakenly called Steve Nash's name probably in preview of the next question coming up right now. We talk about the Nets and their challenges to start the season and what they have to prove. Guys, I'm going to start with Neil right now. What, in your estimation, are the biggest challenges that Steve Nash is facing with this Brooklyn Nets team as a first-year head coach?
So, me, when I saw this question, I immediately thought about Kyrie Irving and all of his antics on and off the court, because he bringing Sage to the court. Yeah, he all of a sudden bringing Sage to the people court and doing all sorts of nonsense.
Does man have Caribbean heritage? Because
man working voodoo. Just know you can see the man with a Obia dollar. Some of the opposing players are doing bear jump. But in all seriousness, I think Steve Nash's biggest challenge here is mitigating egos, right? I think his biggest challenge is going to be dealing with all of the off-court activity that those premier players bring. We know Kevin Durant is a prima donna. We know that he can easily be hit.
Strong term, prima donna. No, do you want to expound on that? Are we just not sidetracking?
I mean, we could talk about it a bit. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you guys remember his last year in Golden State when they tried their best to court him. They took him to the construction site of the new building. They tried to appease to him, make sure he was a big part of the marketing there, and made a big push with billboards and all sorts of activity. And then Draymond Green and him had a late game spot where Draymond Green said, "We don't need you. I don't know why you came here. We can be good without you. We can be good with you. It don't matter." Right? And then all of a
Says
sudden his feelings were
says
hurt
the
and he
man who
came out.
texted in and begged him to come. But yes, continue.
Yes, which is funny, but it came out later on I think on Kevin Durant's platform, the boardroom, where he said that he knew at that moment that he was out. He knew and I think that was what I think that was a third into the season. I don't think it was like or maybe halfway through the season, but the fact remains that you're on a championship team. You're playing on a squad with easily three other Hall of Famers, and you can build something there that can take you to the next level. You won 73 and 9 games. You just didn't win a championship. No, you had a chance to make up for that and continue, right? Continue that legacy of Golden State. Yes, it will take away from your individual legacy, but you know what? What players always say they want to do? They want to win chips. So to me, he had a great chance
With an
to
asterisk
solidify
next to it.
sure, Barry Bones got one too, and Sammy Sosa and them. But to me, Kevin Durant, his ego was a bit bruised by Draymond Green telling him we don't need you. So now, taking it back now to the Brooklyn Nets, we know Kyrie is very. I am the politically correct person on this show, so I'm gonna say he has a very eccentric behavior and lifestyle.
He's built different.
Built different. Yeah, we can use
Very
superlatives. He
different.
was built. He's built different, and one of those types of guys that when things are not going his way on or off the court, he is gonna. I don't want to say throw his teammates under the bus, but he is going to say and do things behind closed scenes that will start to make you raise eyebrows as a teammate. Like remember when he was playing for the Celtics, they were saying that he went weeks on them without talking to his teammates, and they're in the middle of coming out to the Eastern Conference and legitimately having a chance to compete for the title. So, in my estimation, I think that Steve Kerr has a very huge issue of mitigating those two egos as well as showing parity to the rest of the team. Because we don't want a situation we're seeing it unfold now with Houston, where we see that there was a lot of favoritism to James Harden. He, was allowed to do as he like, essentially party all night, practice when he feel like, do as he like, and know that he's being told no and being told that you need to kind of win though. Know that everything is pointing at him. No kind of being self-destructive, saying he want to trade and all this here. So to me, and we see it out there in the Clippers as well, where we're hearing that Kawhi Leonard asked for all these grandiose things and didn't deliver and everything like that. So to me, you have to make sure that your other teammates, your bench, your others are invested mentally and know that they're going to be the one to really sustain you through the dog days of the last half of the season coming on to the playoffs and into the playoffs. So that's going to be a huge challenge for him as a first-year coach, especially as a first-year coach that is so freshly removed from the NBA. I think that there is potential for him to kind of mentor Kyrie Irving, so to speak, to help him refine his point guard skills. I
Good
know
luck with
Larry
that.
laughing. Yeah, good luck with that. But I am trying to find the silver lining here. But really and truly, Steve Nash has a very tall. I was really surprised to see Steve Nash take that job because I know veteran coaches that wouldn't want that action. So
I
for
was
Steve
surprised to
Nash,
hear Steve Nash get the job, but
well,
whatever.
that's a different segment for a different show. But yeah, I think Steve Nash has his work cut out for him to make sure that because the talent is there. The talent is there, and all things being equal, that team should be able to make noise in the East and should make the playoffs comfortably and should be able to make a decent run at the Eastern Conference title. But the egos, man, the egos. I think with the mentality of some of these players and the pride that they have and the ego, Kyrie Irving, they all of a sudden be having a burning a sage of opposed to Kevin Durant. I don't know. It's just like any number could play from that flat earther. So it's just he has a big, big task ahead of him.
What say you, Larry?
I agree with Neil, but I'm going to I'll add on something first. He then also mentioned the whole DeAndre Jordan ego part where he was coming off the bench last season. Kenny Atkinson got fired or he quit. Oh, and the very first game after that, DeAndre Jordan was the starting center.
Yeah.
So that's also a part of the whole ego thing. I'm going to like choose a different answer. The answer that Neil gave was like the easy, obvious one with all the weirdos and whatnot, all the ego.
Low hanging fruit.
I think that Steve Nash's biggest challenge is to get this team to play any defense. Like, who is this team's best defender? Like, do they
You
have
need Steve Nash.
anybody?
Well, come on, Larry. You
And
think Steve Nash? Steve Nash?
They have D'Antoni. They have Amari Stoudemire. Like, where is the defense going to be coming from? DeAndre Jordan is not a good defender at this age. Durant.
It will not be. But to answer your question, Larry, it will not be coming. Simple.
Well, okay,
there's no defense in our There's no D in Brooklyn Nets. Don't get tired. There's D in Brooklyn.
I want to say this, but he have host duties now. But when you hire Steve Nash as your head coach, Amari and Mike D'Antoni as your lead assistants, and then you brought in 0 defensive stalwarts, I thought are not. That's not the identity of their team.
No, but I'm not saying that it has to be their identity. But you know, like in training camp, you know, coaches always talk about, we want to be defensive minded, be defense. Yeah, but you know, like, how is he going to like portray that message to the players? You know, I mean, we've heard D'Antoni talk about defense before. It's never come.
So the same say, why have we heard D'Antoni talk about defense before? But let me not cut you off.
But I think Steve Nash, I'm not worried about the Eagles with Steve Nash because I think that was one of the main reasons he was hired, because he's like very similar to Steve Kerr in that they talk about his emotional intelligence. He has a past relationship with Durant. He's like close with these guys. He knows how to talk to them. I think I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing, but I think Steve Nash will be able to manage the Eagles reasonably well. I think they trust him. Even Kyrie Irving took back his, we don't need a coach comments after a couple preseason games with Steve Nash. I mean, obviously it's Kyrie Irving, and like
I was just about to say it.
He could probably like choke him tomorrow and we wouldn't be surprised. But I'm just saying, like, I think that's the reason he was hired. I think that's the number one job for him is to manage Eagles, and I think he will do a decent job at that. So I think the pressure on him is more to win games. And in order to win the games, they need to play some defense, a little bit.
120 games, score 135 games, and everything gravy. Defense? Nah.
We'll see.
Here's the funny thing, right? I'm looking at the other side of the ball. It's the offense that really worries me where this team is concerned.
You sure?
In that, and here's what I'm going to tell you.
Oh, you mean that they only got one basketball? The rules state that there's only one basketball to be played, to be used and played.
When you look at the coaches that you've had, the Suns coaches, obviously, in Brooklyn. So you have Steve Nash as your head coach. You've brought Mike D'Antoni and Amari Stoudemire as your lead assistants. And they have all played in one style that made them famous, 7 seconds or less. They got up the court quickly, they took shots quickly, and Steve Nash was basically the head of that state. The guy that facilitated everything, made everybody around him better.
I'll
get to that.
The ball going from one player to another player.
Right? Then you saw something a little different. Yes, it was at 7 seconds or less, but then you saw D'Antoni then go to Houston, not immediately, but he went to Houston, put the ball in James Harden's hands, and had him be the scorer, the facilitator, the everything for Houston Rockets. No, these guys with that type of mentality come to a Brooklyn team that I just mentioned earlier has absolutely no playmakers on this team whatsoever. Every man in this team is an ISO scorer, whether it be Kevin Durant being the worst of them, because Kevin Durant really is not a passer in any stretch of the imagination, Kyrie Irving, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris is a spot-up shooter, Taurean Prince needs somebody to create for him. Where is this team's creation or ball movement coming from? Is it a situation where everybody's going to come down the court and say, my turn? I do not know.
It might be.
Very well might be.
And this is my problem, because like when you hire Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni, you know that no one's coming with defensive first principles. So it is the offensive end. Like your two lead coaches, their philosophy does not mesh with your best players, and not just your superstars. As I said, your supporting cast in Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie are also not pass first players who are going to make players around them better. So how do these guys, these coaches that come with this particular philosophy, and I guess this is where we're going to see how good Steve Nash is, because as you all know, me personally, I've always said the best coaches don't imprint or don't try to force their philosophy onto team. They just basically mesh what each player does best and work for. So my biggest challenge is to see, can Steve Nash and to a lesser extent Mike D'Antoni decide to shelve what they know in offensive basketball and go with the, you know, the ISO basketball nature that is the four players that I just called just now.
KD and Kyrie are like close to their 100%. I think it's going to work because those players are, yes, ISO players, but they're like some of the best ISO players ever in basketball. So those guys can't be guarded one-on-one. Help will come, even if they make one pass in the possession.
And that's all it's coming in, one pass.
Yes, one pass, but the object is to put the ball in the basket, not to pass.
Facts of life.
So talking about ISO players and not meshing, is this team better off not adding a third ISO player in James Harden? Do you believe they should go all in on that trade Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert, and maybe Jarrett Allen and 2 first-round picks, as reported by multiple streams?
They may have to get back D'Antoni to the Rockets.
So are they better off with or without James Harden in this squad? I'm going to go with you first, Larry.
I believe so. I mean, why not? The guy is an MVP. He's going to be... So, as you said, in the trade, they're going to have to give up 2 other ISO players, correct?
Yep. Yes.
And now you're getting back another ISO player. So, which is better than both of them, probably combined.
Okay.
So, you already win that trade. You already win that side of trade, right? And I think James Harden can also pass better than the other players. Correct?
Not willingly, but yes, agree.
Not willingly, but yes. He's a better shooter. He actually, even though he's not like a spot-up guy, he's actually a better shooter than Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert.
Right.
So to me, fit-wise, it just makes more sense to do it. And we're talking about windows here. You don't sign, as you said earlier, you don't sign KD and Kyrie not to try to win a championship. And I think trading for James Harden will give them the best chance to win a championship that they could get.
Neil is in clear disapproval. So same question, Neil Hoyt.
I can understand from a surface level, from a macro level, you're saying, okay, you have 2 all-time great ISO scorers and offensive players. Let's add a third, right? Let's complete the triad and just have exciting ball where, yes, defense may be a luxury every now and then, but we get points on the board and we strike fair in teams, especially in the Eastern Conference. But as I said before, that is, to me, such a bad idea, simply because, one, you have, just as you guys said, you have 3 ISO players, right? The passing the ball can just go out the door. That's, to me, yes, defense, no, James Harden, I don't know. That, I mean, we even talking about defense with Brooklyn Nets. But no, you add another prima donna, you add another person that as soon as, because the expectations are going to be greater. You have 3 of the greatest scorers offensively in the last, 10 years? The expectations, especially in the East, are going to skyrocket. And then when you start to lose games and the pressure is starting to buckle and Kyrie is not talking to the rest of the team for 2 weeks, and Kevin Durant on his second phone, all of a sudden, retweeting his mysterious quotes and tweets, right? And you got James Harden getting fatter and fatter and just deciding not to pass the ball as long as the ball is in his hand. I just think that is a recipe for disaster. If these players can show me that they're willing to put aside their ego, part of it, for the betterment of the team, I would have no problem in James Harden coming. But to me, when you're giving out all of these players to bring in a player that is just gonna, to me, it's like you're adding more wood to a fire. It's gonna be bigger. It's gonna be great. It's gonna look pretty, but it's gonna be also very destructive and can cause a lot of damage. So I don't know, man. Like James Harden, to me, I don't know if it would. But who? No, as we said in this space and behind closed doors, who are you going to bring if you're going to add somebody else to that Brooklyn Nets team? Who is available? Who's going to come? You understand me? Who is going to be willing to be paired with the two of them to make something happen? So, I mean, it makes sense from a dollars and cents perspective. It's going to be entertaining basketball, but I just don't know if they have the wherewithal to put aside their egos to make it happen.
So I'm going to gang up on Larry this time and agree with Neil.
Hey.
It's one thing to say that, yeah, you're getting rid of two ISO scorers for one. The problem is at least those two ISO scorers know their place behind the other two ISO scorers. So they're going to tell themselves, being Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, this is still, like, as much as we were here before, these two dudes, they are higher than us in the pecking order. So they're not passers, but they know they have to pass the ball to these guys. When James Harden inevitably arrives, and I do believe that if there's a trade going to be made, when Houston does trade, I think they're going to take the Brooklyn offer more than anyone else. Because when I look at them, I think the Brooklyn offer is the best I have seen of the 5 or 6 offers that have been rumored there. When James Harden inevitably comes, whose team is it? Because he's going to tell himself, I have more MVPs than these two guys. Does he? No, he's a one-time MVP, like 1 or 2.
He's one.
One time. Yeah.
So I'm an MVP like Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving is not. So let's forget him. And I'm accustomed for the last 8 years dribbling the dots off the ball and doing what the hell I feel like. I don't spot up. I don't cut. So already I can't fit with these guys because they can't play off the ball. Kevin Durant is, by right, should be a good off the ball player, but he really does not play off the ball. And we've seen what Kyrie Irving is like. Really not good off the ball either. So as I said, it's nice and good to say, and I agree with you, Larry, that you already got 2 ISO scores, so at least you'll be -1. But the difference is that those 2 ISO players know their role. And they know that they are not as good as Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, they know their role, but it's not like they're great fits either.
Well, agreed. But
and I think James Harden, not personality-wise, but James Harden, basketball-wise, should be a better fit because he's a better shooter than both of the players.
We sat down and watched James Harden now with Russell Westbrook, and before that, Chris Paul. This man refuses. And being on the court with the lead guard, we saw with both.
Also to add to that, Justin, he did run out those 2-point guards as well.
He did. Well, even though the last one, he would say that I don't think he personally ran him out. I think.
Yeah, I don't think Westbrook left on his own.
Oh yeah.
But one thing I would give James Harden the benefit of the doubt is because, one, he's asking to go to that team. That's the only teams he's asking to go to. So he knows the situation already. 2, he's never played. Well, he played in OKC, but it was a different. I was about to say, but it was a different. He was a different player then.
Different era.
Hold on, Larry.
Different.
Yes, the circumstances were different.
So he
but
never.
Remember also.
Never in his prime, he played with players as good as KD and Kyrie Irving.
Right, but hold on. Remember also. I'm glad you brought up the OKC situation because he wanted out not just because of money. He has come out now that we've found out he wanted out because he thought he was at his stage. He wanted his own team.
But that's
and
fine.
These are his words.
To be expected for someone who's 23, but he's 30 now. You don't.
And worse in his ways now.
23 at 30.
And worse in his ways now. Like I get you, Larry, but had James Harden be a player that can cut. Like, and I mean literally cut. And I don't talk about a master slasher, but just at least cut on one possession in the game.
At least go through the paint. At least.
And if the man was at least a guy that was spot up, and I don't even mean like drift to the baseline. I mean that's literally spot up when you're off the ball. The man does neither. So there's nothing
It does.
telling me.
But I think the situation is going to be different because now he has players that can actually create for him, as opposed to before.
Why you play with Chris Paul?
But here,
Yeah,
but
that
no,
was
no, but
one
hold on.
guy. That
But
was
listen,
one guy.
at the end of the day, right? I think what's gonna happen is again, then the adversity happens and they start to lose games in a row, which every team goes through during the season.
Yeah, even the Miami Heat Big Three, it happened.
Oh, bit. Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna go through that stretch. What these players gonna do? Is it still gonna be Kyrie's team? Is it still gonna be KD's team? Is it still gonna be the pecking order of what the hierarchy of the team? Or are they gonna be like, well, shoot, we just lost the last three, so tonight I gotta go for 50, and that's James Harden saying that.
Well, we know Kyrie's going to burn Sage during the losing streak. One.
Yeah, with that we know that.
He may be burning lavender by that time.
But I don't know. I think at this age, basketball wise, I think these guys are basketball mature to understand the ups and downs of a regular season. You're going to win some games, you're going to lose some games. I don't think, one losing streak, it's time to blow it all up. Come on.
And here's the thing, right?
You got to give
Here's
these
the
guys
thing,
more
right?
credit.
Adam Silver has banned these players from going out. So one man that we know likes to strip clubs already, you're taking away his voice. And
In New York too? Oh, shoot.
So you're taking away this man's voice already. And I'm not calling names, but we already know who that man is. So my situation here is, right, none of these three players, and I'm going to say this right now, are mentally strong players. We've seen what they are. Like, one man needs a burner account to respond to his own messages to blow
to feel good about himself and to validate himself.
Agree.
The next
I
man
don't disagree.
is in a public tirade with the media constantly. And the other man has always acted like you can't question anything he does. And all three of these men, you can say the same for all three of these men. Could be, I could have said Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, or James Harden in any of those descriptions. Yeah. These are not mentally tough players. So at some point, because you have to try to make this all work, the losing will happen. And I'm not saying bad losing.
And that's where I disagree, because when you look at their career, Kyrie Irving is different. He only won because of LeBron James, but James Harden and Kevin Durant are accustomed to winning, despite they may not be mentally strong.
Kevin Durant
accustomed to winning.
Kevin Durant.
Even though James Harden playoff resume is not that great, but the man made the playoffs every year in Houston. He made it to the second round more often than not. He made a Western Conference Finals. So he's also accustomed to winning. So I'm looking at it in terms of on the court more than off the court, because I think off the court it should be okay. They're all weirdos together, and I think the weirdos being together, they'll be comfortable.
And I'm glad you mentioned that they're all weirdos together, because they really are.
Yeah.
Who is the person? Because you've heard now LeBron James talk about it in terms of James Jones, Richard Jefferson, and Channing Frye. Who is that veteran that is going to be the leader? Because none of the three are also leaders. We know that.
Yeah, and I think that has to come from Steve Nash. Honestly, I don't see anyone.
I actually was just thinking the same.
Anyone on that roster, and DeAndre Jordan he doesn't seem like that type of guy.
He's not that guy.
Spencer
Dinwiddie, Jared Allen,
they're going to be gone if you trade for James Harden. They're going to be gone.
So none of these players, whether James Harden, whether Kyrie Irving, whether Kevin Durant, DeAndre Jordan, these are not strong. They're not mentally tough players, and they're not emotionally great leaders. So as you said, it's going to have to come from Steve Nash. But there are times, and we have all played basketball. We've all played basketball competitively. There are times when you're on the court that there has to be a leader that says, "Hey, let's get out of this funk. This is what we're doing," because a coach can't do everything for you. Yeah, and that is my fear with these players. And I'm not saying it can't work, but somebody has to be the leader on the court to be able to step up. And I know for a fact that is not any of the three aforementioned superstars.
Right, but you agree that it's going to be the same problem with or without Harden.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but Harden is going to make it worse.
You could as well trade for Harden then.
Sorry, well, And with that, entertainment value, let's get Harden and
Yeah.
let's see the three weirdos.
I watch the
I
world
know,
burn.
I know, I want to see that for sure.
Yeah, I want, but I want to watch it because just like you want to see a car accident or you want to see a train wreck, you just want to see it.
It's going to be fascinating for sure. Oh, for
some way, somehow, it's going to make for great watching. Yes. And speaking of great watching, we know it has been our tradition over years to sit down, eat food on Christmas Day, and watch NBA basketball. And thankfully, Adam Silver has found a way to make sure that the NBA is back in time for Christmas. So, guys, I think there's a full slate of 5 or 6 games this Christmas Day. Which game are you watching and why? I'm going to start with you, Neil. Are you eating your turkey and ham with, and what? Sorry, what are you watching with your turkey and ham?
All. Last year, every year
pick one, man. Come
I am
on.
picking one.
The people in the comments are already complaining. The people in the comments are already complaining.
How this guest company show body man already? All of a sudden, no, I get relegated to third banana and I got MVPs. Why can't I stand this thing? I do something in Houston and all of a sudden, no, I relegated to third banana. What's this here?
Oh, you got red? You look fat?
But no, all right. If I was to choose one game, then it would be the Lakers game.
Yes,
yeah. But I will add the caveat that I won't mind saying that Pelicans game either.
Yeah, obviously. Why?
I won't mind saying it. Because James
You ain't watching it with Jimmy Butler.
Oh, no. I want to see Zion Wilson. If we talk about fat and saucy, I want to see some touchdown with that. That man is awesome. I love him. I love Zion Wilson as a player.
He is. He's great.
All right, let me hear you.
Larry, quickly you, because I know Marsh will be killing me that we're not sticking to time, but Marsh is not here. What game are you most looking forward to watching?
I mean, I'm a homer just like Neil. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the Heat game. Duh.
Pelicans go.
And just being a pessimistic fan at heart, I feel that the bubble performance is somewhat of a fluke. So, I need us to win that game so I can feel at ease about the season going forward.
Fair enough.
All right.
Especially since they got destroyed in the preseason by the said Pelicans too.
Yep. Well, what about you, Justin?
Well, unlike y'all, my sons are not going to be playing
your
on Christmas Day.
I was just about to say it. Your Bucks.
My sons are not playing on Christmas Day, so I don't have anybody to root for.
Your sons? You got sons?
Yes, I do have Phoenix sons. And I think it's a bit hard done that we got Chris Paul but couldn't make, the Christmas Day lineup. But no problem, Adam Silver. What I'll be looking for, as we just talked about the Nets, I feel like for the entire show, is that Celtics Nets game. Because as we talked about, there are no playmakers or pass first players in Brooklyn. Neither are there any in Boston when you look at their 3 best players. So can you imagine James Harden there in Brooklyn and Kemba Walker being back by Christmas? Or will he be back? I'm not sure. So you have a situation where Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown are the others on one side going one-on-one. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden on the other. No one is passing basketball. It is all
bad basketball that just so good.
No, basketball as Dr. Naismith intended it.
I think Naismith did intend that the pass was a part of basketball when he invented that square box on the box.
Just to go through the bucket.
All right, then.
Right word. It is going to be one possession after another of one-on-one basketball. I do not see a single possession having more than 2 passes in it, unless
three if you count in the outer balls for the referee.
Or if you count the actual inbound passes, 3 at the very most. It is going to be one-on-one at its. This is going to feel like a episode of Rucker Park or Drew League, because there is not going to be a lot of passing. So I can't wait to see that situation. Particularly, I guess it'll be Harden's first nationally televised game in a new uniform. Yes, I anticipate that James Harden will be a net by Christmas. So,
the Nets gonna get signed for Christmas?
Yeah, I think
I can get presents.
Low again.
a little bit of an inside joke there. We having way too much fun on this show, clearly. But yeah, I can't wait to see the one-on-one basketball that is Brooklyn.
But you're also
and Boston,
forgetting the big storyline, right?
which is
The Kyrie versus Boston storyline.
All that is
I mean-
more Sage. That's
yeah, because I kind of feel like I am upset with the NBA. All Larry has to do is burn that paper. No, we have to carry it on our show.
No, burn it, be like, get rid of that bad juju.
I think NBA did it wrong by having them play the preseason knowing full well, because it kind of done it for me. Like you, like it's,
I did that on Christmas. That would have been.
Oh my goodness gracious!
that's what I'm saying, right? Like the NBA made an error in having that preseason game before this, so that's why I'm not looking at that big storyline. He's hugged it out with the players already, and burnt his sage, and almost burnt TD North Garden down already. So, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the one-on-one aspect and James Harden in Boston. Sorry, Brooklyn, back. But as I said, if Marsha was here, she'd be cursing and getting on the worst way possible. So I think we've run out of time. That is it for this week's episode. But don't worry, folks. We have Thursdays as usual with Adam, our mailbag episode where we have yay or nay and short and sweet. And we'll be back here again next week discussing basketball. I think Marshall's out for. So who knows? We may bring back Larry Marshall.
What?
But yeah, we'll see how that goes, especially if his Miami Heat get destroyed on Christmas Day.
Hey, something
But
to
that
talk
is-
about.
But that is a
Hold up. By my Pelicans.
But
Enjoy
that-
the Eric Bledsoe era. That's all I'll say.
that is all the time we definitely have on this show. So guys, give us your outro.
Valeria, you're the guest, so you could go first.
Okay. Well, looking forward to Christmas. Happy holidays to both of you all and all the viewers. And I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I am happy that the NBA is back. I love it. It's unique to have it this time of the year. Happy holidays, everybody. And this is the Neil Hoyt, as always.
Bah humbug. I am Justin Marvel of This Just In. So signing out and see you next Monday in the same space, same back channel.
All right, good night, everybody. Later.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't no matter if you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.